Thank you very much. We appreciate the chance to be here. With your consent, I'll submit my written statement and just try to summarize in the interest of time. Federal procurement is an enormous challenge and issue of importance to the small business community nationally, as you know and as you've identified. But it's also, small business participation is also crucial to a healthy federal procurement process from that point of view as well. Small businesses provide high-quality goods and services to federal contracting agencies and infuse the federal procurement system with much-needed competition. In turn, the federal government invests in the most dynamic and innovative sector of the U.S. economy. Although small businesses comprise 99.7% of all employers, firms in the U.S. employ over half of all private sector employees, and you know all the rest. They only receive a small fraction of federal contracting dollars and a tiny sliver of federal research and development investment. In 2006, small companies received just 19% of federal contracting expenditures, according to data compiled by Eagle Eye Publishers. And according to the SBA, the percentage of federal contracting dollars going to small businesses in 2006 was just 22.8%, and that is clearly insufficient. We're pleased that this committee and now the House of Representatives has passed H.R. 1873, which takes many steps, we think, to expand the size of contracting opportunities for small companies. And we think that's a crucial goal because, as we often see in hearings like this, what we see are competing programs in the small business community competing with one another for federal dollars, and we think that's rather unfortunate because we need to find ways to increase the opportunities for all small companies, not simply figure out who should be first in line among the small business community. So while those rules we think have to be clear and they have to be fair, we're hopeful that we can expand opportunities for all small companies and not just some at the expense of others. So we hope that you'll keep that in mind as you move forward as well. Specifically, one of the issues I think that you have tried to address in this hearing and in I think the legislation that you're thinking about is the issues of fraud. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit more as well. Large businesses too often are the real recipients and executors of federal contracts ostensibly awarded to small companies. I think Ms. Stiles alluded to some of that earlier in one particular instance, but there are many others as well. Up to a third of the SBA's list of top 100 small business contractors in 2005 were actually large businesses, according to Eagle Eye again. Additionally, more than 20% of the respondents to our own internal survey reported losing out on a federal procurement opportunity that instead went to a large firm that had been identified as a small business. So allowing large companies to masquerade as small for the purposes of obtaining federal protections intended for the nation's small businesses is an affront to the will of Congress, a breach of the trust of the American people, and an infringement of the principles of fair play and competition. We welcome efforts to combat fraud in SBA small business contracting programs, including actions such as on-site verifications and geographical limitations and civil penalties for firms found to have falsely represented themselves as service-disabled veteran-owned. In addition to combating it, NSB urges enforcement against companies committing fraud. Since 1988, the Small Business Act has provided for felony convictions up to 10 years, criminal fines of $500,000, mandatory 3-year debarments, and forfeitures for companies determined by the SBA to have misrepresented their small business status. Prosecutions under these provisions have been lacking, however, and the SBA rarely rules on whether companies have misrepresented their small business status. This should change. NSBA urges prompt prosecution for companies found to have fraudulently claimed small business status. NSBA also continues to advocate for increased authority for the SBA to disbar large contractors that fraudulently identify themselves as small businesses. Despite being the world's largest buyer of goods and services, the federal government of the United States remains something of an unknown commodity to America's small businesses. And that gets at points that have been made by earlier speakers as well. Specifically, Ms. Stiles talked about the complexity of the system, and that continues to be an enormous barrier preventing a lot of small businesses from even considering getting into federal procurement. And that's something I think we should address as well. There are lots of of correlations between federal procurement system and the tax system. We talk a lot about the tax gap and how people are cheating, and the core crux issue there is the overwhelming complexity of the tax system. People make a lot of innocent mistakes, and people who are out to do wrong find it very easy to do that and hide it. And I would submit to you that the procurement system is reflective of that as well. And we need to think about ways that we can simplify and make things a lot clearer. Thank you very much.